Okay, so how do you go emotionally when you first go off grid and you go, oh, what's he even making this segment for? What's it got to do with anything? Well, I've heard of a particular woman in New Zealand who moved out to a remote area, and yeah, she was it was a bit hard on her, and something mucked up one day and she started crying, and she just cried for hours and hours. The unfortunate reality of moving off grid is that usually it isn't a terribly smooth transition from being sort of on grid to being off grid. And you say, oh, what's that? You can't have all the things you want to have. That's a minor part of it. What it really is if you do as I've done, which is move in without things fully set up, it is sort of hard enough. It's not too hard, but it's quite a change when you go from being on grid to being off grid, as I first did, with no refrigeration, no decent water tanks, not even solar power, and the ability to run a laptop or a TV. Literally just an LED lantern and a car battery to run the shower rig. And you got to carry the little LED lantern everywhere from one room to the next. It's a bit of a shake up in that at first. And if you're one of these real blooming rich lefties who lives in the inner city with all these fantasies about how your life's going to be off grid, you will get squashed like a bug emotionally when you first come out, because some of the things that happen, one of the big ones that happens first, even if you've already set the house up very well before going in, is teething problems with new equipment. I had grief from the hot water system, the gas stove, the bad batteries in the hot water system, the bad batteries on the solar system when I first got that. When I first got the solar fridge, I had the first panel lasted about 3 hours, because I sort of put it in late in the day, because I was putting everything else in. And I put that solar panel on, and she was all grand for the first 3 hours. The next day, it just sort of somehow shorted, and it was producing double the electricity it was supposed to. Now, what I mean is double the volts. So we'd gone essentially to a 24-volt system, producing, I don't know what sort of amps, but something was amiss inside it, and it sort of had to go back, and I had to get another one. And some of this particular electronics place that I've got easy access to, because they're not too far from me, and the stuff is all right prices. I've now found out, since I went to the RV and camping show, that you can get stuff a lot cheaper. But their stuff's all right, but oh gee, they put on a bit of a turn when you come in with returns. They sort of put on a bit of a, oh, do you hook it up right? And they're saying, oh, did you just hook it straight to the battery, or did you use a charge controller? Hell, I was in here and you saw me buy the damn charge controller, and they sort of make a bit of carry on trying to talk to you like you're an idiot amateur who's blowing something up because you hooked it up wrong. The battery bloke, aside from the fact that he was putting returns from other customers, charged them up, wouldn't even flame, and he wiped the dust off and wouldn't even top the water up in them, and just put them straight back on the shelf. Oh man, could he put him a tantrum, bringing stuff back. Don't just assume all the stuff's going to work first hit, and you may have a few good arguments with a few people that you return stuff to, who don't want to take the return back, because they've just got to you realise that they've got to foot the bill themselves for everything you return. So they put on a hell of a resistance to take anything back. That can be grief. One of the biggest things I should mention that can cause you grief, and I'm going to do a section on this in battery technology, is getting lead acid batteries, deep cycle ones, whether they're sealed or wet type or AGM or gel, ones that have been on the shelf for a little bit too long, which includes many, many places. Everybody wants to be involved in the solar game and have it as a thing. They get all the stuff that sits on the shelf, and I'll explain a little bit more about why that's bad in my battery tech video without going into it too deep here. But that'll cause you a lot of battery. I literally had about, oh man, you know, I can literally see the batteries here. There's one out there, there's two sitting on the table over there. You know, I went through about 5 batteries before I got decent batteries for both the solar and the hot water systems. It's flaming terrible, you know, so you make sure you read the thing about battery technology to avoid you a lot of grief, which I had to face, and this is a lot of why I make these videos, is so you don't have to face the same grief that I faced. You know, but when things have troubles, that's what some of your grief will be. It won't really be the quality of living dropping that'll cause you grief, but if you are worried about that, then that will cause you grief. It's teething problems with machines. You know, like I said, gas stove was a little bit funny at first, and the blooming hot water system blew one of them. Bad battery in the solar system. A lot of bad batteries for running the hot water system pump, and even a bad solar panel with a solar fridge. And all of these take a bit of a toll on you emotionally, and that's sort of what has cemented my decision to use a propane freezer, because I don't want any more shenanigans involving batteries and solar panels, any more grief arguing with blooming mongrel attendants in the you know, shop who don't want to take returns. Want to pick a reason why they shouldn't take a return and they shouldn't give you another one under warranty, and all that. But you know, if you've got to have everything just so, because you're a wealthy city person who aspires to all this green living, but you just got to have everything just spot on, you'll get absolutely crushed emotionally. Not only dealing with a change in quality of life, but dealing with teething problems on machines, and just the whole massive change. And the fact that, you know, things don't run perfectly the way you'd expect them to all the time, or things that you may once have had are got to be a bit different, you know, but you do adjust to that. But there is a bit of a emotional roller coaster ride that you'll have, and then at the end of the day, things sort of go to normal because you're used to it, and things are no big deal. But yeah, you know, a large part of me making all this series is to give you advice to avoid the stupid mistakes I made, or the just not knowing mistakes I made, like the battery issues and stuff like that. So yeah, that's emotional shenanigans involving moving off grid.